Welcome to this explainer. Look, today we're doing something a little different. We're not just looking at a dusty history lesson, we are diving into a literal masterclass in environmental management and hardcore survival. We're talking about the infamous 1962 Alcatraz prison break, and we are going to explore exactly how human ingenuity managed to conquer solid concrete and steel. So you have to ask yourself, how do you escape the inescapable? I mean, it's a total paradox, right? Alcatraz was specifically engineered to be the most secure prison on the planet. It was explicitly designed to be completely impossible to break out of. In its entire 28-year history, nobody had ever successfully done it. The environment was utterly, relentlessly hostile. Well, until three men did the impossible. So how did they actually pull it off? It all comes down to a concept we're calling bootleg prison engineering. Basically, it's the resourceful fabrication of specialized tools and survival gear using only strictly limited, heavily monitored everyday materials. These three men use this exact principle to completely flip the script, turning a highly secure, heavily guarded environment into their very own secret private workshop. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's the roadmap we'll be following for this explainer. We'll start with the ultimate survival challenge. Then break down the exact step-by-step survival tutorial these guys used. Step 1 is the decoy, Step 2 is digging out, Steps 3 and 4 take us up and out to the roof, and finally, Steps 5 and 6 tackle that brutal crossing of the San Francisco Bay. Let's jump right into Section 1, the Ultimate Survival Challenge. Now, to really set up this tutorial, we have to understand the absolutely brutal realities these inmates faced. They were locked in tiny, heavily monitored cells for 23 hours a day. Surviving an environment of armed guards, metal bars, constant room checks, and frigid shark-infested waters, yeah, that requires an incredible team. These men were resilient problem solvers who perfectly leveraged their assigned prison jobs to gather materials. You have Frank Morris, working in the library. With a genius IQ of 130, he was the mastermind who actually learned his survival skills from magazines like Popular Mechanics. Then there's Clarence Anglin, who worked maintenance and painted as a hobby, giving them access to essential paint. And his brother, John Anglin, well, he worked in the barber shop, which gave him the perfect cover to provide actual human hair. Using this incredible teamwork, Frank Morris spent almost an entire year devising an insanely ambitious 6-part master plan. It covered everything from setting the decoy to crossing the bay. And executing this roadmap flawlessly wasn't just some nice goal, it was an absolute life or death requirement. Literally, one single mistake meant getting caught, shot, or drowning in the bay. Which brings us to Section 2, Step 1, the decoy. You know, a massive part of any survival strategy when you're being heavily monitored is buying yourself time. You have to manipulate the expectations of the authorities watching you. To slip away undetected during those intense night checks, they spent 2 full months crafting fake heads to place on their pillows. And the ingenuity here is simply staggering. By combining concrete dust, sculpted soap, toothpaste, and toilet paper with Clarence's stolen prison paint and John's barbershop stash of actual human hair, these decoys were eerily realistic. They were so good, they practically looked exactly like a sleeping man just out of the corner of your eye. If we run through the timeline of that fateful night, June 11, 1962, you can truly understand the meticulous pacing they needed to execute this plan under the noses of armed guards. Lights out is at 9:30 p.m. Decoys are placed by 9:35. By 9:48, they're already out of their cells. They hit the roof at 10:45 and eventually launch into those terrifying waters at exactly 11:40 p.m. Every single minute was fiercely calculated. Moving right along to Section 3, Step 2, digging out. Okay, just imagine the agonizingly slow process of manually scraping away solid concrete walls with stolen headless spoons every single night for 6 whole months, totally in secret. To manage this incredibly hostile environment, they had to completely hack the system. I mean, how do you pass routine room inspections with a massive hole in your wall? Well, you craft incredibly realistic fake vent covers out of painted soap and cardboard notebook binders. And how do you muffle the intensely loud noises of digging, especially after they upgraded to a bootleg power drill made from a stolen vacuum cleaner motor? You cleverly time your loudest digging exclusively during the prison's 5:30 to 7 p.m. music hour, aggressively playing the accordion to mask the noise. Brilliant, right? The sheer quality of what they built here, honestly, cannot be overstated. When modern special effects designer Adam Savage actually examined the surviving fake vents in the prison archives, he said this: "From a maker's standpoint, this is a masterpiece. To make this out of homegrown materials is incredible. I really want you to take this away. This wasn't just some arts and crafts project to pass the time. This was high-level engineering disguised as junk that literally saved their lives. All right, that takes us to section 4, steps 3 and 4, up and out. So after squeezing through those dugout cell walls into a hidden utility corridor, they had to climb 4 stories of pipes just to reach a cell block roof loft. To pull this off, they had already converted this roof loft into a secret workshop by hanging up blankets to quote-unquote catch falling dust during assigned ceiling maintenance. And up in that loft, literally 15 feet away from guards patrolling with Thompson submachine guns, they built a 14-foot survival yacht. They cut over 50 stolen prison-issued raincoats into strips, bonded them with period-accurate rubber cement, and meticulously hammered the seams flat to create airtight seals. And for inflation, they ingeniously repurposed that exact same accordion that masked their digging noises, converting it into a highly efficient bootleg air pump. To finally bust out onto the actual roof of the prison, they pulled off another mind-blowing feat of engineering, the bootleg bar spreader. So this tool used opposite threaded bolts attached to a central turnbuckle. By simply tightening the middle with a homemade wrench, the mechanical force silently deformed and bent the heavy steel restriction bars of the roof vent wide open. It just brilliantly illustrates that you absolutely don't need a formal college degree to think like a masterful engineer. And now we hit section 5, steps 5 and 6, the bay. This is where the urgency hits an absolute fever pitch. Imagine this. After scaling 2 12-foot barbed wire fences and dodging searchlights while carrying all this heavy gear, they finally step out of the controlled prison, right into the brutal chaos of raw nature. And brutal is definitely the right word. When modern engineers attempted this exact crossing in a replica raincoat raft, they encountered terrifying conditions. Just listen to these chaotic quotes from the recreation. "These are 6-footers, literal whitecaps. Oh my gosh." The raft basically acts like a dangerous waterbed, filling with freezing water as they are tossed around in the dark by massive waves, in an area known to be actively hunted by great white sharks. This wasn't a casual paddle. It was a desperate, terrifying fight for survival. Which actually brings us to the most shocking scientific fact of this entire explainer. The number 30. That is exactly how many minutes they had. Modern GPS trackers placed in the bay prove that on any given night, there is only a tiny 30-minute tidal window where the high tide current will safely push you from Alcatraz to the mainland. Launch outside of this 30-minute window, the fierce currents sweep you helplessly out to the open ocean, and that means certain death by drowning or hypothermia. Remarkably, historical FBI records show that Frank Morris pushed that raft off the beach at exactly 11:40 p.m. He hit that exact 30-minute sweet spot flawlessly. And he did it without any modern tidal data, likely just by observing the debris in the water moving with the tides for months on end. So the crucial takeaway here is a question for you. What does true survival really require? Is it just physical strength? Or is it the resilience, the teamwork, and the sheer ingenuity to bend a completely impossible environment to your will? It is definitely something to think about the next time you face a massive obstacle in your own life. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.